Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Why Islam? By K. Sherman, page 95. The rational conclusion. It all makes sense. Everything fits together like the pieces of a puzzle. That is the same sensation I experienced when I first accepted Islam. It just made sense. The pieces of my life had become scattered everywhere. With Islam, I was able to put them back together, one by one. If Islam is seen as the natural continuum of Judaism and Christianity coming from the same source, the same one true God, Allah, then it should not seem foreign to us. In fact, we should feel like we are coming home. We must overcome our prejudices and misconceptions first, as I had to do if we are truly going to appreciate the beauty of Islam. As a religion of human nature, or fitrah, the teachings of Islam are already inside us. They are part of our mindset, of our psychological makeup. That is why we can immediately relate to them. They are not strange or outdated or intimidating in the least. We can comfortably accept them. All human beings have an affinity for the truth. We readily respond to it. It is part of our unspoiled nature. Conversely, we hate lies, deception, and falsehood of any kind. We naturally seek the truth and try to avoid falsehood. People who were raised outside the fold of Islam face a unique dilemma. We were born true to our natures, loving the truth, loving God, and loving the world. Yet, we were taught a very different set of beliefs. We were once truly happy with life and with who we were. We were naturally at peace with ourselves. Then we became conscious of the base world of materialism, of false appearances, and of making a profit at any expense. We liked what we saw as we were fed lie after lie to lure us in. We partook of it all, unaware of the inevitable outcome. Ultimately, we had to grow up. We met doubt and confusion along the way and began to have an inexplicable feeling that something was not quite right. However, life was still fun as long as we had plenty of stuff to distract us. Perhaps after a while we discovered the world of atheism and other false creeds, and we found them appealing. After all, we were born to worship something, but we didn't like it. We were never satisfied and never convinced. We felt strange and uncertain about it, but we dared not comment. We were actually resisting the forces of Taghut, anything that is idealized or worshipped besides the one true God, Allah, without realizing it. So we were actually resisting the forces of Taghut without realizing it. After a while, though, we acquiesced and resigned ourselves to false worship because we had no other alternative. That way was the only way we knew. We were force-fed the religion. We were force-fed the religion of our forefathers, even though they were devoid of guidance. As the Quran correctly points out, this was referring to the pagan Arabs, but it is just as applicable to us. Listen to this. And when it is said to them, come to what Allah has revealed and to the messenger, they say, sufficient for us is that upon which we found our fathers, even though their fathers knew nothing, nor were they guided. The Quran chapter 5 verse 104. Our doubts only increased as instability, anxiety, fear, and a whole host of other negative emotions set in. It was a foreign concept to us. It never sat right. Nothing sat right. Our misguidance caused us a lot of grief, pain, and inner conflict. We completely lost ourselves in the false promises of Taghut and materialism, in all the lies and the deception. We began to lose our very identity. We had poured all our faith, all our energy, and all our resources into a system and an establishment that could give us nothing in return. We were sucked into something like a black hole. We were dupes, unaware of the dark, satanic presence all around us. Now we want to get out. How can we get out? How can we escape the confines of such a limited existence? By recognizing the fallacy of it. What makes people leave error and false ways? What made the early pagan Arabs leave their backward tribal practices? What can make us leave ours? The recognition of something better, the recognition of the truth. Truth cancels all falsehood, just as light eliminates darkness. It cannot be defeated or disproved. However, falsehood can easily. It cannot be defeated or disproved. However, falsehood can easily. Does money bring real happiness? Or is it a myth we have been told all our lives? Are the happiest people in our lives necessarily the richest? Can money guarantee an easy ride? Can money guarantee an easy ride? Is suicide confined to the poorest segments of society, or more accurately to the most spiritually destitute? Do you deny that you were created? Do you deny that whatever force brought you into existence the first time, that gave you eyes, ears, a heart, a brain, and an intellect, can repeat the process once again after you die? The very fact that you can deny it proves it is true. God gave you this choice. If you fail to acknowledge Him, you are only corroborating the noble Quran where it is written, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Al-Ra'd, Ayah 1. But most of the people do not believe. Quran chapter 13 verse 1. Has any part of the Quran been proven false? This challenge is still on 1400 years later. People often debate which came first, the chicken or the egg, as each one depends on the other. There is no chicken without an egg first, and there is no egg without a chicken first. And there is no chicken or egg without a creator first. The theory of chaos proves it. Can order come out of chaos? If you leave the widespread destruction after a Big Bang, for example, to its own devices, is it ever going to recognize itself or come together in any semblance of order? Not until the camel passes through the eye of a needle. It is simply impossible. It will never happen. If someone invited you over for lunch and you asked who made all the luscious food, would you believe it if he or she looked at you and said, nobody? Could either of these scenarios have happened without an intermediary? There can be no lunch without someone preparing the food, and no order out of a Big Bang without some sort of intelligent design, or rather an intelligent designer. This is common sense. People will regret not using their common sense, one of their lowest brain functions, when confronted with the great reality. If the unbelievers are correct in their unsubstantiated claims to the contrary, that God's justice will never come to pass and that there is no accountability after we die, then we Muslims have nothing to lose. However, those who deny their Lord will have the prospect of facing divine wrath if their claims are unfounded. إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. Surah Al-Isra, Ayah 81. Surely falsehood is a vanishing thing. Quran chapter 17 verse 81. Islam as a religion and as a complete way of life, appeals to the rational, intelligent side of a human. It takes into consideration our advanced cognitive capabilities. It has high expectations for the human race, that they can comprehend basic truths and use their power of reasoning to come to the right conclusions. The Quran consistently exhorts humans to consider different aspects of creation, the alternation of night and day, the water cycle, the growth of plants, the food we eat, the amazing design of animals, and the inner workings of our own bodies. We will see signs of God's power and greatness therein. However, our hearts and minds have become dull and jaded by our mundane existence. They have become stiff and solid, rigid, and unresponsive to the truth, even as plain as it is. The Quran condemns people who do not use their higher faculties, comparing them to cattle or worse, who are interested in nothing but the food in front of them. Cattle are simply doing what is expected of them, eating, drinking, and reproducing. Human beings have a higher destiny than that. Alhamdulillah.